Hi, it's Kamon Reynolds. Here we are in our honey yard, and I'm going through this colony right here, and I wanted to show you a little trick. We're going to get into the hive and inspect it here in just a second, but as you can see, I have a couple of partially drawn combs right here, and they have nectar down in them, and they're gorgeous brand new combs, and every year we'd like to get a couple new combs. However, we also want to put drawn combs if we have them on the colony so they can immediately move that nectar out of the queen's laying room and be good to go. So we're going to add another super here, but I wanted to show you this principle. I already went through and moved things around, but this did have 10 combs, and it had 8 drawn combs and 2 foundations in the center. Now ideally we want 9 frames in a honey super so they draw the combs fat, and it makes it easier for us to uncap them with a knife. But we do want to get some new drawn combs. So having 2 foundations in the center of 8 drawn combs early in the season encourages them to draw these foundations out, but also gives them other space to deposit that nectar so they don't backfill and you end up with a swarming problem. Now that they've just started on these, you can see this one's just started a little bit right here. These are ready to go either with other foundations. We can stick these 2 right here with 8 more foundations in a box, and they'll readily go into that box and start working because they've already started on these. Bees don't view foundation as their space and their stuff. But once they put comb in it, and especially once they put resources into it, then they really occupy that space and go after it. So that can help get things started for you. And if you do that over dozens of colonies and multiple supers, you can draw quite a few combs that way throughout your season. Here's a box from last year that I did not come back and remove the 2 because I just forgot about it. But it would have been ideal that I came through later and dropped this back down to 9. And you can see I'm pulling this out right here, and they drew this comb and this comb out, and they are still good combs to be used this year. And just over, well, we'll drop it down to 9 today, that's for sure. But then over here I have another comb, and we have all these older combs right here that are ready for the bees to use. That one's got a little bit of wax moth damage, but that's not enough to keep them from fixing it and using it. Alright, let's get to the colony. So we have an excluder right here. This allows us to be able to just take these off and not have to worry about brood or swarm cells being up here, or the queen if I need to find her. That's got a decent bit of weight to it. I'd say it's probably about 30% full. This is not a super large colony. This one's kind of a medium size, so our bigger colonies have over a deep box worth of honey so far and are working on a medium. But this is still a good colony, and if the flow continues, I think we'll still be able to get 3 medium supers off of this colony, possibly more. We'll just have to see how things go. That's got more weight to it for sure. And let's see how the queen's doing down in here. The main thing that we want to do, we're busy right now, so we actually don't have to pull these frames out if we don't want to. I could have left that excluder on and just tipped the bottom up, and well, let's just show you. This is an old single bottom board, and it is, well, it's holy, but not in the good way. Well, that's got a pretty good weight down in there. Oh boy, and here we go. I've got some swarm cells, but they're not capped yet, at least none that I can see. So look down into here, and you can see that there's cups, and these aren't a big deal. This one's dry, this one's dry, this one is wet. Alright, let's see. I don't know how well you can see that. This one right here is the problem though, and it's drawn out. It's a few day old cell, 2 or 3 days, and yes, it definitely has a lot of jelly, and look at that larvae down in there. So that means this colony is wanting to swarm. They have not capped it yet, so that means there's an opportunity to keep this colony from swarming, and I don't have to make a split. So have to go through every frame and make sure every single cup and cell is crushed and eliminated. And then that way we can, and then we'll show you what else we'll do to retard swarming in this colony. They're not heavily swarming. There's not a bunch of cells, but it only takes a little bit of that stimuli, and they're almost past it. They've committed to putting a lot of resources in these supers, but we need to, that's why we check them during the honey flow, at the start of it, right beforehand. We check them once a week, and sometimes sooner than that if we feel like it's necessary. We're going to scoot these around a little bit. And yep, there's a, well, shucks. This one's capped completely. That means we're going to have to make a split or something. And I don't know how many times I've tried this, but I can tell you whenever they're to the point where they're capping cells, the stimuli is just so far along that you've got to do something. Alright, so there's that cell right there. That's one I'm still gonna crush every cell in here, because they'll sometimes take off with the virgins as they emerge. Now I don't recommend that. I have a lot of queens. I have extra hives, so if this hive does go queenless, I have queens of my own and little colonies that I can combine in there. So my main goal is now finding the queen, because if they don't have that queen and they have no cells, they have no opportunity to swarm. And see, this is part of the problem. They have nectar down in this brood. For whatever reason, they weren't getting up in the supers quick enough. The flow has been extremely powerful lately though. I'm not seeing any swarm cells or cups on this frame, but if there's a lot of bees on it, you have to shake it off and make sure that you don't miss one. And maybe this colony, if it's capped, maybe it has swarmed. Maybe that's why it's not as big as I'd like it to be. I'm not seeing any eggs. That would be a sign that we had a queen within the last 3.5 days. I'm not seeing anything on this one. You'd think if it was a heavy swarming situation that there would be more cells. Okay, here's some young stuff. Maybe I'll find an egg or two down in here. There's some pretty young stuff in here. Gonna spot the queen laurel. And we're not just looking for the queen again, we're also looking for any cups. So take your time, and honestly shaking them off of the frames sometimes is helpful. You can just shake them down into the colony, or if your colonies are like on pallets on the ground, you can make like a little ramp with sticks or something, and they'll just go right back into the colony. But meanwhile, they're out of your way. And you got to check the edge frames too. They will put swarm cells anywhere. And a lot of times when the queen's getting ready to swarm, you know, she might not be on a comb. The bees are running her around the hive. She could be on the walls. So you have to check that too. That's one of the reasons why I'm not putting those back in. We'll make it a little easier on myself. Oh, there she is. She's still trying to lay. I believe she's looking down in there. Honeybees measure, honeybee queens measure, well, I believe actually regular workers do measure as well, using going headfirst into a cell. And so the queen, she'll go into a cell and she'll measure that, and if it's a certain size, she lays an unfertilized egg, which will be a drone. And then if it is the size cell that she feels is good for a female, then it'll be a fertilized egg. And see, she's trying to back into that cell and lay, I'm pretty sure. But probably with this swarm impulse, they're harassing her. And that's something that does happen. Whenever there's a swarm tendency going strong in the colony, they harass the queen and don't give her a chance to lay and hustle her around the hive, and causes her to lose weight because she cannot fly good when she is producing eggs. And she will lose a significant amount of weight. Well, that's good. We still have to go through every frame though. And below, the queen is right here. Yep, she's laying, so that's a good sign. But still, this that's a dry cell, or dry cup, I should say. There's a couple down in here. I've got to go get a nuke box so we can put the queen into that little split that we're going to make. All right, so I have a nuke box with me with 3 drawn combs with nothing in them, and then I have this frame that's got honey, and it also has a good bit of bee bread. We're going to place this down into here. We could just give them foundation this time of the year, but I want to give her some combs. I have some extra anyways. And there she is up there. And she'll have a little bit of brood and some bees with her on this frame. She's an older queen, definitely an underperforming queen. Not bad, but not great for sure. But she's just older. That's all right. She can work on this nuke right here. Now this will need more bees. We can shake more bees in, but I'm actually going to take this to another location and I will shake bees in from another location because I want all these bees to stay here and work on honey production. So now let's get over here. Just not a big booming colony right here. I'm not looking down into here and seeing big brood patterns that make me think this is going to be an exceptional honey yielding colony. Yeah, she's on the way out. That's why there was only 2 supers on this colony and they weren't even filled yet. This one's got a little bit more to it. Now I didn't see any cells on that one. We're still looking for cells here. Alright, that's more like it. A little bit better over here, but why is there only a couple that have good patterns on it? It should be better than that. Whew. There's one that just about got me. Alright, so what we can do at this point, we're not going to be shaking the queen off. This was the cell that we crushed down below. You can see the royal jelly in there. There's a larvae. And the bees will just reconsume that and redistribute that for other needs in the hive. So, looks to be good. We'll want to come back. I'm going to come back in 5 days. And I am going to crush any cells because they'll make some emergency queens. And I'm going to crush those. And then I'm going to plug in either a queen in a cage that's younger, or I'm going to plug in a nucleus colony into this. And this colony will still be productive, but it won't be full honey production worthy this year. There's not as many bees as I'd like to see. But this is one of the things that you get when you let queens run a little bit older. That queen's quite a bit in age. I don't know exactly how old she is. I don't always use my ink pens correctly, but I know I didn't use green last year. So she's at least 2 years old. Here's a cup up here. Doesn't matter if it's dry, we still have to look and double check, make sure there's not an egg in there. All right. Last but not least, and we'll just drop a comb in where we took the one with the queen. I want to shake 2 frames worth of bees in with that queen. Again, why we're not taking them from this colony is we want those bees to stay here and work on making a honey crop. And this looks like just resources. Yeah. Old foundationless frame. Still got a couple of those wandering around. Alright, looks good. This colony is just not super vigorous. I know I'm kind of saying that again, but you can kind of tell because their swarm tendency wasn't even that strong. They have some swarm tendency, but they're just not that strong of a colony. This is the sign of an old queen. And this is one of the reasons why we requeen colonies and try to keep younger queens. They definitely perform better than older queens do. And but it's all good. This is a still good hive, albeit not a great one, and we'll be able to requeen this. And it may seem impressive to you on that end, but when we go into colonies and they're way up to here already, and they've got 6 frames that are solid capped brood and looking ideal, and they got other frames with brood, and all you have to do is go to a colony like this, put a new queen in, and poof, you see the difference. But we'll let her build up that nuke right there, and then probably they'll supersede her at some point if we don't do it first. And we'll just put a queen cell in there, and a virgin will probably take over, and voila. But it's important. Colonies that don't need anything really don't get marked. Maybe you might get a check mark with a lumber crayon on the lid. But a colony like this, we either need to have documentation with papers, or we need to have a piece of duct tape on the lid that we take a lumber crayon or a permanent marker and write a message reminding ourselves what our job is and what the situation was. Because when you have 30 or 40 colonies in a yard, some of my yards have had over 120. I just got one yard back down to around 70. It's important to know these things. Alright, now we're going to take a drawn comb. I'll just steal one from here. We're going to place it on the edge. That way we're not disrupting the brood nest. There's no queen to lay in it anyways, but it's okay to put drawn combs on the edge because they'll just move resources, nectar and stuff over here where they want it. Now we have the spacing to 9. We'll need to come back and requeen this colony. Again, if I didn't say it, the reason we didn't leave any queen cells is that stimuli can take a little while for the bees to kind of get over it. And so even if we let these queen cells in the hive and took the queen out, there's still a decent chance that they'll just swarm with those virgin queens. And that wouldn't be any good. So that's one of the reasons why I stress to you all so much. Make splits, have insurance colonies. It's not always losing your bees in winter. It's queen issues in spring, fall, summer. I had a great colony that went through winter, came out in February, was looking just great. In March, she started laying drones, about 50-50. And she just, I don't know if she didn't get mated properly. We raise a couple hundred queens for ourselves a year, and a couple of them always end up having some issues. It's just a handful. It's just how it works. So things happen in your beekeeping operation. So if you want 5 hives to be successful, maybe have 7 or 8. And it's bees, for Pete's sake. Can you have too many bees? No. No, you can't. Laurel's going, yes, yes, you can. Well, Laurel's always right, so take her advice. But Anyways, we're just going to throw all this back together. I'm still going to add another honey super, and we'll get this colony straightened out. And I promise you, when we get the new queen in here, it's like a light switch. Great queens, dead mites, and good nutrition. We'll see you in the next video.